Welcome to Life on Mars, ladies and gentlemen, the podcast of MarsBased, where we discuss technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship. We got two great people here tonight. We got the founder of Prototyp, Pontus Österberg. He is the manager of the Spanish branch of the company. That's a design and product development studio from Sweden. And Gordon Cardiff, CEO and founder of ClearPeaks. For the sake of transparency, I need to announce that both of them have been or are active clients of MarsBased, but most of all, I'm interviewing them because they're really great people that I've been having this conversation that we're going to have here for years with both of them in how to generate business, how to do sales as a CEO or a founder of the company. And I thought it would be a great idea to bring the three of us together and discuss it here. Hello, gentlemen. How are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Very good, Alex. Thank you for having me.
Hello, Alex. Great to be here.
Just for both of you, if in 1 minute you can describe your company a little bit better, because I haven't done it. So Pontus, you might want to start with that very briefly.
Sure. So I'm one of the co-founders of Prototyp. We were originally called Prototyp Stockholm, mirroring the fact, of course, that we were based in Stockholm. Nowadays, we're also based in Barcelona, and opening up a new office, a second office in Sweden, in the town of Uppsala, quite close to Stockholm. You mentioned in the first, in the introduction that we were doing design and development. Not quite true. We're just developing, and we normally say that we call ourselves a code lab. And the long version, the extended version, is that we're a code lab for companies who want to break new ground. That meaning that we work with either brand new technology where there are no specialists and you're better at use if you're a generalist, or we work with companies that might not work with the cutting edge technology, but at least are doing something new from their perspective. So that might be a very traditional company that is going digital, or a new offering that is digital as opposed to before.
Thank you. Gordon?
Sure. So ClearPeaks, we're a business intelligence and data specialist company. We're based in Barcelona. We have presence. We have our head office in Barcelona. We have a development office in Reus, just south of Barcelona, 1 hour south. We have two offices, one in Abu Dhabi, one in Dubai, servicing the Middle East market, where we're very active. So basically what we're doing is, we're a consulting firm. So we offer our customers, who are typically enterprise customers, they're large, the service of integration of all their data sources. So many customers that are dispersed over SAP, Oracle platforms, Microsoft platforms, whatever. So we will bring all that data from those different transactional systems into one place, called the data warehouse. And then we have a whole series of visualization, let's say, vehicles to get value out of that data. So that can be through what we call the executive experience. It can be through just visual dashboarding. It can be through web type applications, through mobile type applications. So depending on the kind of the user and the type of consumer they are, then we'll make solutions for them. Okay.
Great.
So okay, yeah.
No worries. Just I cut you off. Sorry.
No. So that's fine. I was just about to say that we're looking obviously to expand into different regions right now, and US is very active for us right now.
And the US is always very active. Since we got the three kinds of company, right? We're definitely the smallest one here at MarsBased. Prototyp will be more like a middle-sized company with a couple offices. At least you got more people spread out. And then Gordon, you run definitely a bigger company with over 100 employees and servicing perhaps the biggest clients of the three of us. So, but let's start from the very beginning. We'll end up talking about how to sell to enterprise and big contracts. But do you remember the first contract, how it started, and how did you get it? Because one of the main challenges we found here at MarsBased was we were the three founders. We were working in consulting before that, and therefore we had a no competing agreement with the companies we're working for. So therefore we couldn't get contracts for the company if we didn't quit our previous job, which is what happened. I quit my job and I started looking for new contacts, but definitely I could not access my previous contacts just because they belong to the former company. How was it for you? How did you find your first client? Maybe who wants to start?
I can start.
All right, go for it.
So I'm an engineer by background, and I was working in an engineering capacity in a company called Compaq, who you remember made computers. And I decided to leave for different reasons. I've been there like 4 or 5 years, and I decided to leave and to form my own small practice. I got kind of the buzz out of the data thing. This was going back quite a few years now, as you can imagine. And I was very involved with using data in a manufacturing capacity to improve processes and improve just the business that was going on inside this quite state-of-the-art manufacturing plant. So I did that, and I've always there's some principles that I think that you have to take to your working life, whatever you do, and I think quality and integrity and trust are these 3 principles that you have to have. And I think that when I left, and I'd literally been in my apartment, this was in Scotland, and I'd been in my apartment for like 2 weeks trying to build my own business plan. And I got a phone call from my ex-employer, Compaq, saying, look, we heard that you're looking to build a consulting firm around the area of data and so on. Before then, we didn't have, BI didn't even exist. It was called Executive Information Systems. And I said, yeah, I'm looking into it. And they said, well, look, we've got the first lead for you in our headquarter in Munich, which was our European headquarter. So I was kind of a little bit astounded by that, obviously, and I made a phone call to the contact in Munich. I explained what I'd been doing in manufacturing and everything else. They loved the fact that they could get someone who has come from the hardcore manufacturing of these products to the headquarter that could really talk in detail about the problems in supply chain, the problems in planning, the problems in distribution. And I think that it's those 3 components. I think that when you do a quality job and you provide trust and you demonstrate trust and integrity, I think these are the facilitators that just make it easy to then engage, and that engagement lasted 5 years.
It's not entire luck, right? Because you had a background, you had done a great job previously during.
No.
But it came to you in a sense, right?
Yeah. No. They phoned me up. They literally 2 weeks out the building, and that was a bold move from their side because I had left, and I had left a lot of colleagues, and so for me to then reappear 2 weeks later in Munich in Germany and find my name back on the mail system as an external was obviously a decision that someone took knowingly. But that was the start of ClearPeaks.
Pontus, how was it for you? Did the offer come to you, or the opportunity come to you, or you had to go out and hustle? And how was it?
No, it was quite undramatic and a little. I mean, it has similarities with Gordon's story. Yes, the offer came to us at the time. Me and my 2 co-founders were working in a startup that we helped founded as well, but with one digital product, like a web platform that we were building. It was quite successful in accumulating attention and even prices in Stockholm and Sweden, but not in finding our business model. So we kind of knew that things were coming to an end, and we're preparing for life after this first first take at entrepreneurship. And since we had quite a success before, we were actually, poked by clients before, like, hey, why don't you help us out with this? We need help with that. And at the time we were focusing, and we still are, on development. So we had, my co-founders are excellent developers. I'm not developing myself, but they are. So it was easy for us to find the first client, or they actually asked us if we could do work for them. And it was really not very dramatic at all to set off. What was a little bit nervous though, maybe, was that we were always quite, I know it's, at least in Sweden, Swedish is a bad word to be opportunistic, but we were, if there was an opportunity, we would benefit from it. And in this particular circumstance, we had a friend, basically another very good developer, who wanted to work, and he wanted to work with us. So the only risk, or if you would even call it that we brought on, was that we brought on a new team member from the beginning, who was not a founding partner, and who was asking for salary from day one, which the rest of us, of course, were prepared to wait with. And at the time, I guess it felt maybe a little bit risky. Looking back, it was like, yeah, there was really no risk involved at all. What would be my judgment now.
And at the beginning, we're 100% focused on sales, right? At least the CEO, or I think the founders. We're three co-founders here at MarsBased, and we were focused 100% on sales at the beginning because we had fuck all to do, right? We didn't have any clients, so the first thing we did, just like email people, ask around contacts and all of that. But fast forward to today, what's your percentage of time invested into sales of your day-to-day life? Pontus, maybe you want to start?
As a founding partner,
as a founding partner,
or the counter. It's for me, it's quite small, I would say. I'm involved mostly in upselling, and part of it is because I'm based in Barcelona, whereas 95% of our business or our clients are in Sweden. So there's an obvious mismatch. I obviously can't go and meet people over lunch or pitch at meetings left and right, even though Corona has kind of made that more likely, because our clients are more likely to accept even sales call or early stage sell meetings online, which was, I would say, very difficult before, but out of necessity, because what we can see now after 6 months or 7 months into this crisis is that business has to go on, and we will find ways, and people will need to buy stuff still. In the beginning, my impression was definitely that sales was not working very well, but now, there's a need to buy stuff now, and you're prepared to do it on video conference. But so back to the question, how much do I spend? Yes, so I would say, like, direct sales time, I would say around 20%. And some weeks I would do 40%, and some weeks I do 0, more or less. But that's it. And most of it's incoming sales, or it's upsell on existing clients, or returning clients, because we have quite a few of those as well. I guess that's similar for you other guys as well. But that's a sale nevertheless. That has to be done somehow.
Yeah. You're mostly an inbound company, right? As I understand it.
Yes, we are definitely mostly inbound sales. We're trying to shift that throughout all the years, and we're now on our 10th year as a company. It's been very difficult to shift that, and I'm not crying over it, because I think inbound sales is a lot nicer. But of course, we're always struggling with the feeling like, are we actually in charge of our own sales pipeline, or is it someone else who's in charge of it?
That's a good one.
Kind of we've kind of grown used to the fact that that's the way it is, and we're constantly growing. We're now 30 plus people, and it's still, the sales are still made the same way. Yes.
Gordon, how about for you? What's your distribution sales? And
I think I don't like to use the word sales, because we don't really sell. but you know, I know what your question is, in terms of where my time is spent. Maybe 50% of my time is, I would say probably 60%, 3 days out of 5 would be, if not working with our customer in some way or another, working with people who are working with our customer in some way or another. So if we have a sales team in house, and it's coaching and advising and consulting, it's not really selling. There is the proposal bit, you know, where it's, you know, but I would say 60% of my time, probably too much, I would say, is there.
Interesting thing, because Pontus said you're trying to build a sales team, or maybe you try to at least change to outbound. While you might have done it. When did you? At what point of the company did you start building a sales team?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good question. I'm just trying to think now. I mean, we're 20 years on, so we had a lot of false starts. Okay, very difficult thing to hire a salesperson to sell consulting. It's a really difficult hire to make, because fundamentally you're selling trust. We don't sell BI services, right? We sell trust to get the job done, and so to hire someone to sell that trust message is a complex one. But we probably made our first hire, I guess, around 2008, and probably went through 4 or 5 bad experiences before realizing that actually, you know what, we don't need salespeople. We need trusted advisors, and we need to take the people from inside the company and bring them to that end of the business.
Yeah, they say that it's easier to teach sales, or at least, you know, to shape an engineer into a salesperson or a pre-sales person, than the other way around, that to teach technology to salespeople, right? Was that your case? Did you just readapt somebody? Okay, and how did they? Because that's my case. In my previous company, they got me out of the engineering team, and they said, like, you're going to be a good pre-sales. I was like, what's going on? I don't think that's going to happen. But definitely, there are very few things that we need to learn. Of course, you will not understand all the economics. You will not understand all the, you know, the relationship model with the client. But by doing it that way, you're taking somebody who has got a fundamental understanding of the company culture, of the business, of the products, of the services, knows how to implement it, knows how to estimate it. But they just need to talk business, which is really complicated. But that brings me to my next point, which is when companies, and you raise a really good point, Gordon, which is when companies hire a salesperson, they just go out into the market looking for somebody who does everything. And sales can be outbound, can be inbound, can be farming, can be a relationship, can be a key account manager, can be, you know, there's a huge diversity of roles out there. You cannot expect that somebody has got all of them, right? No. So what was the kind of person that you actually managed? Was it a developer? Was it like some sort of a hybrid consultant, or what person did you adapt there?
So you mean
the one that worked, the one that ended up working?
Yeah. I mean, these are it's exactly what. I mean, it's look, we know that our customers, when I have a conversation with a customer, they want to talk detail, they want to learn, they want to hear what we are doing in other customers of similar size, and so they all want to use our kind of spying capability of seeing what's going on in many of our customers to then make sure that they're somewhere in the best in class, right? And so that's a great advisory service that we can offer. So to do that, you need to have people that know what they're talking about. I mean, and sales guys are not renowned for that. right? They're more renowned for negotiating and being kind of pushy and the typical things that go with the classic sales guy. And I don't want to tar the brush too much because there are very good consulting salespeople out there as well, obviously. So, I mean, our view has always been: look, we don't care about the polished kind of the blue suit and the fancy kind of look and feel. We're much more focused on what our conversation is about, what experience our guys can bring to our customers, how they articulate that experience, how they build the trust with the client, and knowledge builds trust. Much more so than brochures or websites or anything else. I mean, just talking and connecting to the client, talking about how we can solve pain that they are suffering. And so that's what we look for inside the company here. And we've got plenty of people. It's not even just our people on the sales end that are doing that. I mean, all our consultants in the end are selling. Because they're engaged with the client every day, they're talking to the client, and that's selling, because you're building trust.
How about the part where I mean, one of the things I struggle the most with is when I've got, I don't know, like right now we're talking to 20 prospective clients, just off the top of my head, right? I need to have all that information in my head. I need to report to my co-founders to, push information down the sales funnel, create the reports, then craft the proposal, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we got a company to run. And Xavi, our CTO, needs to manage technological staff. Jordi needs to manage finance and operations. And I need to manage all things like marketing and, talking to the team as a CEO, strategy, so on and so forth. How do you apply all of these context switching without burning out? How do you do that, Pontus?
Well, it is difficult. It was very difficult when I was the managing director, which I was in the beginning of the company. It is very difficult for the person who is now the managing director, and that's the feedback he gets from me whenever we have, feedback sessions that like to kind of sort out what's important and what's urgent, because it's normally not the same things. And I think it always will be difficult. You start out when you're small, you think like, wow, I have to do everything myself, and this is really a lot of things to do. As you grow, of course, there are more specialist functions, but then instead there's a bigger responsibility of coordinating, and you're still left with the responsibility if you're the managing director. Now I am officially the managing director of our Spanish branch, because we have a Spanish company, but in practice, I'm not the managing director as much as I'm running the Spanish branch. But I'm very much involved with the management of the whole company, the one that is based in Sweden as well. And I mean, that's on top of the life that we live now compared to the life that we used to live 30 years ago or 20 years ago, before the smartphone, and that was not even 20 years ago. But like these notifications that
10 years,
or
10 years
all the time. And for me, I'm trying to, I mean, I have like micro things that I do to try not to get stressed, because basically I also believe it's this classical thing: the more the stress, the less stuff you get done, and the more stressed you will become of what you didn't do. So it's kind of like a vicious circle. And one of them, for example, is like, I don't have notifications, and many people are like, what, you don't have notifications, you have to be late to everything. It's like, well, I'm not, and it's a way for me to manage and do what's important rather than what's urgent. And that's also what I talk a lot with my managing director in Sweden. But it is, I mean, you're definitely onto something, Alex. It is easy to be overwhelmed by all the things you should do. And in the end, I mean, I like to take comfort in that we're doing well as a company. And I personally talk a lot about staying out of the vicious circle. You don't need to make this spectacular evolvement or jumps in your development as a company, as long as you don't start sliding backwards. Because once you start sliding backwards, lots of bad things happen. Then the best people of your team quit, and when they quit, that project, the particular project they were in, is going to suffer, and you have to throw someone else in there, and that person is suffering because they didn't have a proper handover from the previous person. So you burn out the next person, or the client starts thinking that you're not doing well. So we talk a lot about like we don't have to be spectacular in what we achieve, like we don't need to have growth of 50% a year or all those fancy things, as long as we stay away from the negative spiral. I know it sounds very, very defensive, and I guess to some extent it is, but for us that's been the enabler. We have never actually had to say, what you call, like, to look back and guard our back, because things are going well. But I think the mindset is helping us with that.
Gordon, how about for you? And how did you start delegating stuff? Because that's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah. Look, I totally agree to say I don't think there's a right answer to that question. I think everyone has their ways of. It's a kind of a windy road to get from start to end. There are plenty of books about, professional services and to manage it and all the rest. Of course, there are stressful periods. We're dealing with customers and like yourselves, you're dealing with technology. The technology has to work. The technology can be part of processes which can be critical to companies. And so that in itself brings a stress. You need to hire people. That in itself brings a stress. You need to create pipeline. That creates a stress. And you need to grow consultants and build a marketing operation. So yes, you've got to do it. And I think that's why I've been to many of these kind of equi forums where they talk about consulting firms and the success of consulting firms, and that most consulting firms don't get to 20 employees before they crash. And I can fully understand where we are now. Looking back at that, I can understand why that is, because typically consulting firms start with a group of partners. That is a stress in itself. You don't always agree on things, and maybe sometimes that can be a hindrance, that you got to kind of consult with others. In my own case, I was maybe more driven 20 years ago, in that I knew that I had to get past that 20 mark as quickly as I could, and prepared to take the risk, and risk creates stress. So look, there's people out there that just want that, and they kind of get the adrenaline rush from it. And I'm one of those. I enjoy it as much as I find it. Just look at me. I mean, I've gone through the stress machine 200,000 times. But there's a lot of fun in it as well. And I think I think what Pontus was saying, and focusing on the positives and try eliminate the negatives, and I think you can turn stress into a positive thing if you're if you stand back and take stock of really get rid of the negatives, and try and block out negative events, and try and use the stress positively.
Talking about sales, and that's something we get all the time. And in most of the processes, especially with big companies or corporates, right? You're always asked about, first of all, references, similar projects. What's the biggest client you've ever worked for? Have you ever worked in this sector? Of course, this is a tricky question, because most of the times you're never going to work for a corporate or, for enterprise if you've never done it before. So this creates a vicious circle. So how did you get for both of you, how did you get your first enterprise customer, and how was it? How did you circumvent this whole this whole idea of, you need to have credentials to actually start working for this kind of companies? Who wants to start?
Pontus, you go.
Well, I'm thinking which was our first corporate client. The first year in business, we were working a lot like an subcontractor, and this was back 2010, 2011. Digital products were then still, I mean, there were either the corporate tracks or the more creative tracks maybe that we were in, but then it was still handled by the marketing agencies, because back in 2000 nobody did web applications. So there were web pages, and who did them? Well, it was the agencies, marketing agencies. And then of course, luckily there was a shift thinking like, hey, marketing agencies are not the natural place to do complex digital products. But that's kind of how we started. And so as a subcontractor, we got in contact with quite big clients immediately. But it wasn't us that had to pitch on these big corporates. And to be honest, maybe it's the market where we work, because we're mostly based in Sweden, and that's luck. I don't know. I really don't have experience from other markets. We have had a few American clients over the years, but since we've been kind of recommended, or the sales have been inbound, it hasn't really mattered if they were corporate clients or not. And I don't recognize that they are, telling me like, hey, if you can show us that you work with this and this client, you're not going to work with us. It's rather been like, okay, can you do this? And like, okay, well, we haven't found anyone else, or you come highly recommended from this team. We work very close with all kinds of design teams, so service designers, UX designers, and so on. And they are normally the one who kind of pitch and win the client. And once that is done, they say like, well, this is our tech team, Prototyp. They're highly recommended and they can do this. So I can't really say that was a major challenge to get the first corporate client.
Maybe because of the recommendation part, right? That really plays a big. Yeah. Okay. How about for you, Gordon?
So I think, I know exactly the problem that you're talking about. I think getting corporate client is one thing. I think getting large contracts in the corporate client is another. So getting kind of drip contracts from a large company is still relatively easy to achieve. But to get to the big meat contracts, it's it's always a challenge for the companies our size when you're up against PwCs and Deloittes, Accentures, and these people. But I think it's down to looking at our experience, it's down to a few things. One is tech vendor relationships. So we have very good relationships with the likes of Oracle. And that helps a lot, because the Oracle sales guys, the global account manager of Vodafone will be talking our name in meetings, and the global account manager of Thomson Reuters in London will be talking our name, and so you can get connected, or you at least get into some kind of network where you can approach these guys, and then your own network. So I think if you've never been working in the corporate space, to get into the corporate space, it must be very difficult. I've worked in IBM, I've worked in Compaq Computers, in HP, so I know how the middle management think and how they operate, how buyers think. The process that goes on internally a little bit. I knew enough to somehow know how to deal with that. But I think if you're a startup in Barcelona that you've never been in the corridors of the fancy buildings, and in London and Paris, and it's hard to get in. It's really hard.
How about these small contracts? Like, you raised a really good point. These try not to go for the big contract, but sometimes they come to like, oh, we've got this big contract. That's all there is, right? But what you're suggesting here is that sometimes there will be another department that they will need something really small, like maybe just a web application, maybe just like, a marketing campaign, maybe just something for the likes of 10, 20, 50K, something a meat manager can approve, right? How do you identify these opportunities?
Well, I mean, I think, from our experience, I mean, the small contracts, let's say under 50,000 euro, there are many buyers inside an organization like La Caixa or Banco Santander. So there are many people that have this kind of budget. And so you just got to go and network them and reach out to them and use the typical marketing channels. and reach out to them and speak, obviously get, registered on their supplier list, and stuff pops up. Okay. But like I say, these are kind of the 20K, the 15K, the 30K, it's quick approval, very short, cycle time from the first call to actually getting engaged. But the kind of the €1 million, the $500,000, those contracts, then that's where it starts to get a little bit more, I would say, that's where the kind of sales element is where you have a requirement, and less on the technical side. You need to know how to build a proposal that ticks the boxes, that gets the buyer, on your side. And I think that's an art that you gain over the years. I think we've done a reasonably good job of that, to be honest with you, over the years, and we're getting better every year. But as I said, I think for the drip contracts, it's a great way to get into the large enterprises. Just get in there, prove yourself with a couple of projects in different departments, maybe one in marketing, one in finance or something, and demonstrate to them that you guys are really fun to work with. You're good to work with. You've got great trust and integrity, and you can deliver, and your quality is good. Then work your relationships.
But before we seal the deal, there's always the dreadful due diligence. There's the vendor, how you call it, vendor verification process, something like that, right? You need to get into the vendor pool. Let's say, I remember when we were talking to the likes of Orange or HP some years back, and we needed to undergo this huge and tedious process of approvals, documentation, due diligence, so on and so forth. But, and I want your opinion on this, if a company really wants to work with you, there will be a fast track process. So my question is, if undergoing that long and tedious process is a surefire way of knowing that they don't really want to work with you, because all the times we've gone with corporates, we've gone through the fast tracking process. How's it been for you, Pontus? Maybe in Sweden they don't do the.
No, I mean there is some point to what you're saying. Of course, sometimes you think that you're just trying your and your stamina in there, and I don't know. My experience of that has been quite bad, anyway, because these I mean, basically we want to get into a client without too much competition, right? So we can set our own pricing and put the more, the details of the contract on a more open way, instead of being benchmarked against XYZ. And that's where you really can flip the game and get a better deal. So when there's really obvious that, hey, this is a tender process, or you have to fight against these people, I mean, the same thing goes, as Gordon has been talking about before. It's all about trust. Like, during that process, tell them why is it difficult to compare offer A with offer B, what's actually included in your offer as opposed to the competitors. That's a great possibility for you to build trust, and hopefully the client will actually want to work with you, no matter what they first thought they wanted to buy, or what the official tender is about. But we really don't have a good experience on, for example, public tenders, or I mean tender for public institutions, or tenders for big corporates. So of course we do them every now and then, and quite often we say, like, hey, we really shouldn't do this again. We should have done like we did with this other big client that we work with. Because I also 100% agree with you, Alex. If they really want to work with you, there is a fast track. Someone will make it happen, and they won't let you go through all the hoops.
And there's one thing here, and it's really good before we go to Gordon, because I'm really interested in his opinion on this. But you raise a really good point. When you're competing against other companies, and it's extremely frustrating for companies like ours when they contact you just because they are using the 3-vendor rule, right, or something like that. They have already got two proposals in place. They need somebody else's, but they will give you a call last minute. I need this for tomorrow, but it's already set. They're already convinced. They have already taken a decision. They just want to see whether it really makes sense or not, right? In this kind of situations, do you put less interest, less work into that? Is there any way that you guys operate differently just because you're competing with other proposals rather than just going alone on a proposal for a client?
No. From our side, for me, a proposal is a sales document. It's your company brand, it's your image, it's everything. So a proposal has to be, if you ask anyone inside ClearPeaks how I am with proposals, it's a sales document. And it doesn't matter if you're being invited into a benchmarking exercise. You know what? It never actually is, because you can find that 6 years later, you get a phone call from that same company where you were originally benchmarked. And they really liked what they saw, but they had kind of committed themselves to someone else. But you know what? Then the time has come for renewal again of a contract, and they said, you know what? We really should reach back to those guys. They were great. So the life is short. The network is small. The last thing you want to do to your brand is to shove in a shitty proposal because you're not going to win it. I think that's a mistake.
But that's maybe your opinion is 100% true, and it might be biased just because you've got a sales department who can craft that. But for smaller companies that
I've been there. I mean,
okay. So, but you yourself, when you were doing like the proposals yourself only, did you actually work with the same mental bandwidth and focus?
Absolutely.
Okay. Pontus,
I agree with Gordon, and not only will you do you have the chance to show who you are and what you can do for that company who might be back 6 years later, but that person who was in charge of the process, or those persons that you met in that process, will move on to other companies. They will have other challenges, or they had a consultant that helped them, and they do this tender process all the time. And next time they're going to say, you know what, I was in one process and Prototyp really did a solid impression. And so and to be honest, you never quite know when. You can have your ideas whether or not it's rigged or not, whether the client has someone else that they rather want to work with than you, but you don't really know for sure. So give it your best shot at any moment, and I believe in good karma, or like things will come back to.
Yeah, I 100% can agree with this. We have been contacted even lately from companies that we talked 5 years ago. We told them, perhaps we only told them, look, looks like an interesting project, you should do this and that, but we don't take this kind of technology, we don't take this kind of project, or we're swamped right now, we cannot craft a proposal. And I think it's Maya Angelou who says, like, people will not remember what you told them or what you did for them. They will only remember how you make them feel, right? So in this sense, like, sometimes I'm surprised at some companies reaching out again after many years, like, wow, I mean, we just exchanged a few emails or we hopped on a call, something like that. So that's how you exactly start building trust, right?
Yeah.
And how about then the upselling part, right? Let's talk a little bit about the upselling, because we're talking a lot about trust. We're companies that, if we have worked together, it's because we have got similar concepts of quality, of trust, of what a partner is, or long-term vision, right? And so for me, it's really important to have this long-term commitment with people so that you can understand their businesses better. You can upsell them to other services you've got. You can you want to test or you want to pilot something, a new technology, something like that, right? I remember in the case of when we started working for ClearPeaks, for instance, you originally contacted us for design. We were supposed only to do design. Then we started building the HTML, CSS. Then it was the Angular part, and then we went down to Node.js, right? So we did the full stack, but it's not that we actually upsold you. I think it was more of a mutual understanding that we could take on more capacity. Yeah. But perhaps like this is a good example of how you can get a smaller contract, demonstrate and prove the way you can work, and then start building into the client. How do you actually do this? Do you manage all the accounts in the company? What kind of accounts do you manage, and how do you keep the relationship alive? Maybe Gordon, you want to start with this one?
So, from an account management perspective, we've got that's the bulk of what our sales guys are doing. Okay, so we've got several kind of enterprise clients down in Abu Dhabi and Dubai that are split between some people, and same here. Okay, and upselling is again, it's
you don't like the word.
We're not really selling. I don't think you guys are really honestly selling either. I think what you are doing is you're just winning confidence, and when you win confidence in a client, they want more, because there's a lot more to do. I mean, if you're in an enterprise organization, it never ends. Okay, because the business is evolving all the time. Mm-hmm. So as the business evolves, the technology evolves, the application requirements evolve, everything evolves, right? So long as you're providing, quality and you've got the relationship and you've got the trust, mutual trust, then, the upselling is doing your job, which is, continuously talking about new requirements, about throwing ideas on the table, bringing innovation, bringing proactiveness to the client, and steering them in the right direction, and not just the direction because that might make you some money, right? But giving them the right advice, and even if that somehow cuts you off on some pipelines, but give the right advice, and the upselling, I think, almost takes care of itself.
Pontus, you might want to add up something to here.
No, actually, not very much. I think Gordon could have been a founder of our company as well, because it's a very similar philosophy, and maybe even stress though that what you deliver is always, that's the best salesperson you can have. It's your deliverables, and doing a good job, and you will see that business will continue come your way.
But for instance, one thing that we've got in common, the three of us, is we seem to be the kind of company that you need to be top of the mind of the clients, right? And you need to appear on their LinkedIn or on their phone or on their email inbox, something like that, pretty frequently, because they talk to a lot of vendors, right? I mean, if we're working for, when we're working for a big corporate, perhaps they're talking to, 80, 100 different vendors, maybe. So how to stay top of the mind is you actually have got maybe like regular calls with them, or go out for lunch, or they are subscribed to your newsletter. So the more things you do, perhaps the better. But what are the best strategies you find here to be top of the mind of your contacts?
I mean, from our side, I think it's as Pontus said. I think it's just continuously focusing quality, focusing delivery, providing obviously value. Let's not forget the competitive factor of the business that we're in. We are being attacked from all angles every day, as you are, and as Pontus is. With cheaper offerings, with so to stay on top, it's quality, it's relationship. I think probably of all areas, it's something that we could improve. We're maybe a little bit guilty of let's say relying a bit too heavily on just the trust and the relationship. You've still got to you've got to be at the party. You got to be there all the time. You got to be in their diary. You got to be talking to them. And of course, as you said earlier on, when you've got 20 other balls in the air, you got a marketing resignation on your hand and you have to deal with it. You've got an office opening in New York that you have to deal with it. So it's not always easy to be, in the agenda, at 4:00 on Thursday. And I think that's where small companies like ours get stressed.
But we got one other difficulty, at least in MarsBased. I know you might not have it, Gordon, because you do client work, you do it in their offices, right? I don't know about you, Pontus, but the fact that they never see us, they don't bump into us occasionally at their offices. So it's easier to forget about an all remote company, right? How is it for you, Pontus? Like, for instance, are you finding this? Because I think you've got a mixed model, right? So, or if I'm not mistaken.
No, we're actually doing most of the work from our own office. So we're very little in the premises.
But you get an office, so they can come to your office.
Yes, they can come to our office, and of course, our employees are out with the clients quite a lot as well. And I would say yes. I mean, the people who might be in charge of the initial buying decisions, they need to see us again, and they are the ones who probably we would like to talk to about the new project. But all our clients have hands-on, you know, at least the successful projects. We're working very closely with the client, and the person who's in charge of the product with the clients, they see us every day, even though they don't see me, or even though they don't see my employees physically. They meet and they see the progress, and we have, you know, agile methodologies. So daily stand-up is it, and the retro is a part of it, and the sprint planning is a part of it. Yes, they do see us, even though we don't check in at their office 8 o'clock every morning. So yeah, that really doesn't bother me. I mean, I would say rather the opposite now with Corona. I mean, we're struggling with that as a company. Like, what makes our employees feel like they work for Prototyp and not for our clients, because they spend more time with our clients. First of all, they're working from home.
That's a good point.
A lot more time with their clients than they do with us. And we'd like to believe that we bring something else to the table for our employees than just meaningful programming tasks. But that's a whole different story, and that's another podcast, I guess.
Correct. You could talk about how
I'll cut it there.
Couple of last questions to wrap this up. One added difficulty to selling is when your contact in the client changes, right? You build your trust over the years with the person. Maybe that person was the one who reached out to you, and you go out for lunch with him or her. You exchange emails. You build a relationship, maybe even a friendship, right, over the years. And one day this is gone, and the next person comes, has a different agenda. It's like no vendors, or everything to this one country, or just one vendor for everything, right? How do you deal with it? Have you had any painful experience you want to share, and how you reconnected from somebody who really wanted to cut off any ties with you, and you managed to keep the relationship? Seems like, Gordon, you're laughing, so that seems like...
Well, I mean, we've had several.
You got a few.
I mean, look, you know, when a CIO moves on and a new CIO comes in, that's when anything can happen. And we've had 3 situations where big impact situations. You know, probably with HP, maybe we were billing around $1.5 million per year with HP. A guy called Michael Capellas was left as the CIO, and a guy called Randy Mott came in as the CIO from from Walmart, and changed the model literally in a couple of months. All external, any vendor that's doing less than $10 million a year with us, out. It was a blanket statement. They passed an Excel spreadsheet, and in the Excel spreadsheet we were below the line. ClearPeaks name below the line, and you know, you got 3 months to wrap up, and it's very hard to replace that type of business. Yeah. You know. And that's just a management decision. Everything to India, you know, I don't want to talk about it. We don't want to, you know, just drew the line. And there were hundreds of vendors under that line. We had the similar one again with
that one you didn't recover from. Like you lost the account.
No, we lost in 3 months' time. Everyone was gone.
Jesus.
So we had a lot of people sitting around.
Any of these situations where you managed to reconduct the situation, or?
I mean, there's no. I mean, the procurement people were black and white. I mean, literally, that's 7 years of very high quality service, relationships everywhere inside the account. A CIO comes in, red line is drawn, and that's it. We had it again in London with another very large enterprise, and exact same thing. Everything to India. Well, actually, in this case, they bought an operation in India, And then so how can you circumvent that? There's no way to circumvent that. And you know what? You just got to do what all the advisors say, which is never have more than 20% of your revenue coming from one client.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also Gordon, I was thinking, like, I mean, if a client clearly states that they don't want to work with you, it's not really much. I mean, I don't want to work with the client where the boss says I don't want to work with you anyway. So might be for the best.
Good point.
That's a good point.
And the bet was on them, because hopefully you were running a successful operation with your client before. In comes a CIO, needs to prove themselves. If that person takes a bet to slash whatever was working before, that's person's gamble, and you can't really do much about it. It's up to him or her to come out the winner or loser. And that's right. That's tough luck.
Yeah.
Any experience, Pontus? Any experience on your side of changing the person of contact in the client side?
No, not to our disadvantage. I would rather see the possibility with that you have a very good. I mean, you still have the possibility of continuing with a great, very big client. That's the most likely case, actually, and you have a new advocate for your business moving somewhere else, who might open up new doors. So, yeah. That
you contact them. You follow up with them and contact them to see how they're doing in the new company. Maybe has that opened up new opportunities?
Of course. We're a company that is small enough to be very close in contact with our clients and our key buyers. Yes.
Perfect. Last question. We wrap this up already. We always like to go out with a bang. So, biggest fuck up you've done in selling contracts, and the most expensive fuck up that you can share.
Oh, I only did one really big one, and that was painful. We signed a contract really early in our history. Now that I think of it, I remember it. I felt it was cursed. I got a really nice pen from my wife when I married. Won this Mont Blanc, and I signed the contract with them, thinking like, "Hey, this is my new contract signing pen." Of course, it was a shit contract, and I didn't use that pen for a long time. Anyway, we basically went into a fixed budget contract with very unclear metrics, thinking like, hey, this is if anything, this is to our advantage. And we had one of our best clients was in the board of this new company, thinking like, if things goes wrong, we always have this person in common and she will, hold our backs. It didn't work that way, and of course we felt kind of uneasy to go and cry on mommy, to have someone help us out once we were in a mess. It was I don't know, it was really painful.
What was the damage? Can you share?
Basically we had to work for a long time without getting paid in the end of the project, and
Ballpark?
It came to the point that we should have cut it off earlier, because in the end we put the whole company at risk, because it was the second or third year in our history, and we didn't have the liquidity situation. So it was, and once you start fighting for your survival, things get really ugly. So it was not good.
Gordon, I mean, it's. I think there have been a few. Yeah, when we first moved out to the Gulf, we didn't really understand the buyer mentality in the Gulf, and there's a lot of you need to invest discussion that goes on down there. So you want to get in and work with us, you need to make an investment up front. Okay, so not dissimilar to Pontus' point there, that we entered into one deal with an airport authority, and with a view to kind of invest. And that, in principle, then would get us in the door. So that's just naivety on our side. Would get us in the door, would get us the opportunity to shine in front of this client. And then there would be a lot of kind of downstream business. We got suckered, right? So we did the investment and then got kicked out. And, there's a lot of that going on, that a buyer will take the boutique, get them to make the investment, then get the next boutique to take the next to make the next step of the investment. So there are tricks, and call them dirty tricks, call them just that's the way, and not a problem. But yeah, costly. 350, I don't remember exactly, man days of free consulting. Right?
That hurts.
Yeah, that hurts, and it hurts especially when the investment does not then have the opportunity to recover itself. Right, that's what hurts. Right, but there's mistakes, and that's fine, because that's you can never get it right all the time.
And we always learn, right? We always say that you either win or you learn, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very expensive learning, some very expensive tuition, but
you don't do it twice.
Exactly. All right, gentlemen, I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you very much for being here today.